Good afternoon. I'm Walt Williams from the Fort Leavenworth Multicultural Gospel Service. The purpose of me today being here with you is to talk briefly about the history of the gospel service here at Fort Leavenworth. One of the things I want to bring to you is the fact that there is a book that talks about the chapels of Fort Leavenworth by Richard Wright, who is a brother within the congregations here at Fort Leavenworth, and he talks about all of the history of each congregation and their importance here on Fort Leavenworth. The gospel service is included within this historical context, but today I'm going to fill in some of the gaps for you. In 1992, a group of CGSC students, along with Chaplain Edward K. Manning, who was a student as well at that time, had surveyed the local area, and they looked around to see whether African Americans were attending church either on post or off post, particularly the officers that were here for CGSC. And as a result, they felt that there was a need for a gospel service to be started here on Fort Leavenworth. Now, one of the things I want to bring to you at first is the fact that the name was shaped as the Collective Protestant Gospel Service. You can trace that tradition back to Carter G. Woodson in his book, The History of the Negro Church, because there in that particular book, it talks about African Americans coming from a tradition of Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, and Presbyterian. Thus, it starts to shape that we come from a large group of denominational aspects. As a result of that, Chaplain Manning decided with that particular group of students that they would start the gospel service, and it would be held in Marshall Auditorium of then Bell Hall, which was the home of CGSC. That particular facility held for Marshall Auditorium about over 300 to 350 people as capacity. Well, on the morning of 4 October, a bright sunny morning, first Sunday of the month, the first gospel service was held. About a month or so later, the then Chief of Chaplains, Chaplain Major General Matthew Zimmerman, would come and preach to the congregation as well. Now, one of the things I want to bring up to you is that if you wanted a seat at that particular service, which started at 8:30 and went to 9:30, yes, a gospel service that was going within an hour's time, you had to be here about 8:20 for what we call the, quote, good seat, because the capacity of that particular auditorium was full. There was another service that went behind us at that particular time at 10 o'clock, so that was the rationale for the gospel service being out by 9:30. Another consideration was the fact that the students, along with Chaplain Manning, had determined they didn't want the service to conflict with other services within the local Leavenworth, Lansing, Platte City area, as well as within those on post. So the time was picked for that reason, to deconflict that, as well as to facilitate students being able to study with their respective groups and to do other activities on that Sunday afternoon. So yes, we were in prime time. The service continued on, and then Chaplain Manning was going to depart in 1996. As a result of that, we had an interim chaplain come in at that particular time, and he was the garrison chaplain, Chaplain Sam Sanford, along with Chaplain Curtis McLilley, who was associate pastor, as well as Chaplain Don German. And later on in 1997, Chaplain German would become the second pastor of this particular congregation. Yes, we were still going at that time, 8:30 in the morning. Sometimes we felt that we wanted to change the times, but we didn't. We stayed there. The first two ministries that I will bring to you in this time period that happens is the music ministry and the ushers. The music ministry would consist of a group of young men and women who were singing, and all of a sudden they would change over to become the Voices of Praise and the Sons of Thunder. Later on, you'll find those ministries break out and become also the dance and the children's ministry and the hospitality ministry. And one of the vibrant ministries that took place for a while that was the envy of all of us was the women's ministry, circa 1997. Bible study comes along. And so you find that those particular aspects of growth continue with this congregation. But another tragic event would happen, and that would be when St. Ignatius burned down. And of course, we would find that the other one was Bell Hall being replaced by then Lewis and Clark, which meant that number one, the gospel service would have to move at some point in time. So in 2007, the Parish Advisory Council had already looked at over 6 courses of action as to where the gospel service could continue. Decision was made. It was a hard decision, but with much prayer, we decided to move to a 1 o'clock hour here in then Main Post Chapel. Later on, Frontier Chapel would come online, and as it would come online, we would find that it would open the door to where we could move to a 10 o'clock hour to where we are today. In each case, I would tell you that this particular congregation has gone through many trials and tribulations, from heart transplants to kidney transplants, to Alzheimer's, to cancer, to, yes, even some divorces. But through it all, with a strange and unique presence of the Holy Spirit, this particular congregation continued to grow and still continues to grow. When we look at the chaplains that we've had here, they all fostered one thing, and that was to heal brokenness. Now, there are many other things I could do today to tell you about the gospel service, but I would tell you to come out and join us and join with a congregation now under the leadership of Chaplain Bereon, with the idea and the concept: love God, love people, because surely we've come this far by faith. God bless you and keep you.